Hello students. Today in this lecture, we are going to start with our next Vapour cycle, that is the Rankine Vapour cycle. And in the last lecture, we have covered firstly what are the Vapour cycles or what is their basic process. And then we have covered the Carnot Vapour cycle, its functioning, its different processes, different stages and its characteristics. Okay, and today in this lecture, we are going to start with the Rankine Vapour cycle and the study of its various characteristics. Okay, as you have seen on the board also. But before starting with the Rankine cycle, so first of all, one thing that we have to note down key, what are the practical disadvantages for the Carnot cycle, or why the Carnot cycle is not used for the practical purpose, or what are the advancements there in the Rankine cycle. Okay, so firstly, the practical disadvantages with Carnot cycle. Okay, so the first disadvantage is that Carnot cycle, actually it is very uneconomical to use the Carnot cycle for the in case of the practical thermal power plants. So the first disadvantage is that the condensation process in case of the Carnot cycle is not that much feasible, and it's very difficult in case of Carnot cycle to achieve the desired quality of steam at the stage 1. Okay, at the stage, because the condensate that we get from the condenser part, so it's very not of that quality, or to achieve the exact quality of the steam is very difficult in case of the Carnot cycle, but it can be easily achieved in case of the Rankine cycle. When we go through the study for the Rankine cycle, so there we observe that in case of the Rankine cycle, we have different qualities of steams available with us. So the condensation process has to be controlled accurately to end up with the desired quality of steam. So which is difficult to achieve in case of Carnot cycle. So our first disadvantage is desired quality of steam. Desired quality of steam after condensation is not available. Okay, we are writing here the disadvantages for the Carnot cycle. So the desired quality of steam after condensation is not available in case of the Carnot cycle. And the second main disadvantage with the Carnot cycle is that it has very low work ratio. Its work ratio is very low. Second disadvantage is low work ratio. Okay, so what is work ratio? Work ratio is actually the ratio of the shaft work to the turbine work. So what is work ratio? It is the ratio of this shaft work to the turbine work. Shaft work, that is the common shaft between the turbine and the generators. Okay, so that ratio is very low in case of the Carnot cycle. And number 3, the third main disadvantage with the Carnot cycle is that its overall thermal efficiency is also very low. Okay, the overall thermal efficiency, or you can write as low thermal efficiency. Okay, so the Carnot cycle has low thermal efficiency, but this thermal efficiency is improved in case of the Rankine cycle. And the next disadvantage, main disadvantage, is that there is the chances of heat transfer to the surroundings in case of the Carnot cycle. Okay, so the fourth disadvantage is heat transfer to surroundings. Okay, so these are some of the disadvantages due to which we shift over to the Rankine vapor power cycle. That is, so why the Carnot cycle is not used for the practical cases. Okay, so the first one is the desired quality of the steam after condensation is not available, then low work ratio, then low thermal efficiency, and finally the heat transfer to the surroundings. So the losses, these type of losses are there, and so that's why it is not feasible to use the Carnot cycle for the vapor practical case of the thermal power plant. So the next, so some advancements are done in case of the Rankine cycle. So that's why we shift from the Carnot vapor cycle to the Rankine vapor cycle. Now let's study with the Rankine vapor cycle as the basic stages you have seen here in the figure. So these are almost same. The same basic stages are there. There is the boiler, turbine, this one is the condenser, and this is the pump. So same, and the cycle repeats in them. So this is our first stage number 1, stage number 2, stage number 3, and finally the stage number 4. Okay, and as we have studied in case of the Carnot cycle, that there are 2 isothermal stages and 2 adiabatic stages are there. Okay, and one thing is that Rankine cycle is a reversible process cycle. Okay, it is a reversible process cycle, and also the same terms are used here also. WT is the work done by the turbine. Here WP is the work done by the pump, and WS is the work done by the on the shaft. So what is the formula for WS? It is WT minus WP. Okay, and the ratio of this WS by WT is the work ratio, that is called as the work ratio. That some formulas we are going to write after this complete discussion of the working. And here QI is the heat input to the boiler or heat absorbed in case of the boiler, and this QR, that is the heat released in case of the condenser. Okay, and we know that here it is the wet steam and pressure is created here. Here the temperature is increased in that stage, and here the in case of 2 3 the pressure almost remains constant as there is in the case of the Carnot cycle. And here again expansion process goes on. So in case of 3 4 the pressure decreases. So we have already studied the different types of turbines, impulse and reaction, all that. Okay, so this is the complete cycle. And let's start with the different stages and their special processes done in case of the Rankine cycle. Firstly, the Rankine cycle is an ideal reversible cycle for the steam power plants corresponding to the Carnot cycle. Okay, it is a Rankine cycle. Rankine cycle is an ideal reversible cycle. The first thing. Okay, now let's start with the process 1 2. Process 1 2. And while studying these different processes, so we have to see the graphs side by side also. So in case of process 1 2, see here, here is the stage 1 and here is the stage 2. That means the process 1 2 is along this water pump. Okay, the pump through which the condensate from the condenser is feed to the boiler. This is the process 1 2. So in the process 1 2, the pumping of feed water to the boiler from pressure PB to P1. Okay, so in the stage this is our pressure graph, and here is the pressure PB, and here is the pressure P1. Okay. So that means in case of the stage 1 2, there is the pumping of feed water that is taken from the condenser to the boiler. And from pressure, here the pressure is at stage 1, the pressure is PB, and here at this stage the pressure increases to P1. Okay, and you have seen here also that during stage 1, 2, the temperature also increases. Okay, the pressure increases from PB to P1, and also there is increase in the temperature also. The compression process is reversible adiabatic process, and this process 1, 2 is the reversible adiabatic process. Okay, so 2, that is across the water pump, the pressure increases from PB to P1 and the temperature increases from this stage to this stage. Okay, from T1 to T2. Okay, or you can also mention here as, so here is the temperature, let us say T2, and here is, or here it is T1 or T1 dash, we say. Okay, so the temperature increases from T2 to T1 or T2 to T1 dash. And this process is called as the reversible adiabatic process. And now for the process 2, 3, I'm writing here process 2, 3. See here in the first diagram first, the process 2, 3 is along the boiler. And what is the main functioning in case of the boiler? The heat is absorbed. This QI, this is the heat absorbed by the feed water, which converts the water into the steam. Okay, so this is the process 2, 3. And you see here in this second figure, the process 2, 3, here the pressure remains constant. Pressure remains constant, but the volume increases. As this graph is between the pressure and volume, and you see here between the 2 and 3 stage, the pressure remains constant but the volume increases. Whereas in this third graph, so in case of 2, 3, the temperature remains constant, and when the temperature is constant, so we said that process as the isothermal process. Okay, so temperature remain constant, but here's the increase in the enthalpy. Okay, so for the process 2, 3, the conversion of feed water into steam. Okay, so in this process, the feed water that is taken here from the pump is converted into the steam. Is converted into the steam at constant pressure equal to P1. Okay, the pressure remains constant and that is equal to this P1 at constant pressure equal to P1, and the heat supplied during this process is QI. Okay, the heat supplied is QI, and this process is called as the isothermal process. Okay, so this one is the isothermal process. Okay, and now the next stage, that is the process 3 and 4. Process 3, 4. So see here in the first figure, the process 3, 4 is along the turbine. Okay, and we know that in case of the turbine, the expansion of that steam take place. And with the expansion of the steam, there is reduction in the pressure. Pressure reduces. Okay, so see here also in the stage 3, 4. Okay, there is decrease in the pressure from P1 to PB. Okay, so there is decrease in the pressure from P1 to PB, and also there is decrease in the temperature from T1 to T2 again. Okay, and when this decrease or increase in the temperature or pressure take place, so we call that process as the adiabatic process. Okay, so in case of process 3-4, it is the reversible adiabatic process. Again, it is reversible It is the reversible adiabatic, or you say isentropic expansion of steam in the turbine from boiler pressure P1 to the back pressure PB. Okay, that means the pressure reduces from boiler pressure P1. So this P1 is the boiler pressure, and to the back pressure PB. This we called as the back pressure. Back pressure PB, or you can also call it as condenser pressure PB, as a condenser pressure, or you can call it as the exhaust pressure. Okay, and here the turbine work done during this stage 3 to 4, the turbine work done is WT. Okay, so this is about the process 3-4, and finally the process 4-1. Process 4-1. See here is the stage 4 and here is the stage 1. And this is across the condenser. This is our condenser. Okay, so what does this represent? This is the inflow and outflow of the cold water. The inflow is the cold water at less temperature, and outflow is somewhat hot water when it mixes with the steam from the condenser. Okay, so this represents your inflow and outflow of water that is taken from some river or lake. Okay, so this is stage number 4. This is stage number 1. And across this stage, the heat is released, QR. The heat is released. Okay, and see here in the stage 4-1, the volume decreases and the pressure remains constant at PB. Okay, in the stage 4-1, pressure remains constant at PB. This you can call as the back pressure or exhaust pressure or condenser pressure. Because pressure remains constant, but the volume decreases, as you have seen here from this graph. Okay, and also when you observe this graph, so you have see that the temperature also remains constant. Okay, temperature, no doubt the heat is released to the water. The temperature during this process remains constant. Okay, so in case of the stage 4-1, the steam is condensed at the constant pressure PB in the condenser. Okay, so in this stage, the steam that is exhausted from the turbine is condensed to the pressure PB, constant pressure PB. The steam rejects its latent heat of vaporization to the cooling water equal to QR. The heat released to the cooling water is given as QR. And this is again a isothermal process. So this is again an isothermal process. And one thing to note down here, that the steam generated in the boiler, that is the condition of the steam generated by the boiler. Okay, the steam generated by the boiler, or you said the condition of the steam may vary in case of the Rankine cycle. Okay, it's not that a fixed quality of steam is generated by the boiler, as you have seen here in the graphs also. So at this stage 3, the condition of the steam may be 3, 3 dash or 3 double dash. Okay, and similarly as shown in this graph also, it may be 3, 3 dash or 3 double dash. And what are these 3 dash, 3 or 3 double dash? These are the quality of steam. So there are the different qualities of steam, like there may be wet steam, or you say dry saturated steam, or superheated steam. Okay, like if there is the wet steam, okay, if there is for wet steam, So the cycle is for wet steam, it is 3 dash 4 dash. Okay, if you follow this graph 3 dash 4 dash, so that means the quality of the steam used in that particular plant is a wet steam. Okay, and the next category of steam is the dry saturated steam. Okay, या फिर it is dry saturated steam. For the dry saturated steam, you have to follow the graph that is 3, 4. Okay, if you follow this line 3, 4 or here 3, 4, so that means the steam that are using in this particular cycle is a dry saturated steam, or you can may vary this steam to the superheated steam also. So for the superheated steam, for superheated steam, so it is 3 double dash 4 double dash. Okay, so especially in case of the Rankine cycle, so we have variation in the category of steams, in the quality of steam. So if you follow the graph of 3 double dash or to 4 double dash, so that means a superheated steam is used in this process of Rankine cycle. Okay, so this one is the main difference between the Rankine cycle and the Carnot cycle, that the different categories of steams are available, or the quality of the steam is maybe varied in case of the Rankine vapor power cycle. Like for the wet steam, the curve to be followed is 3 dash 4 dash, or for the dry saturated steam it is 3 4, and for the superheated steam it is 3 dash 4 dash. And this variation in the steam is available after the process of boiler, that means at the stage number 3. Okay, so this is about the Rankine cycle. And see here also there are the same processes that are taken place in the different processes stages, like there is adiabatic process, isothermal, adiabatic and isothermal. Okay, so that means in the complete cycle of the Rankine vapor power cycle, there are 2 adiabatic processes and there are 2 isothermal processes. Okay, so this is the complete working for Rankine vapor power cycle. Now, this is the complete process for the Rankine cycle, and let's have some formulas first. Now, the first is the thermal efficiency. Thermal efficiency. Okay, this is the symbol for efficiency, and for the thermal efficiency, and it is the ratio of the shaft work to the heat supplied. Okay, so this one is the ratio of shaft work, that is the work done at this shaft, which is common between the turbine and the generator. The shaft work divided by the heat supplied during the process. Okay, and you have to calculate this thermal efficiency in case of percentage. So just multiply it with 100 and convert it into the percentage. So this is the first formula, thermal efficiency. The next one is the steam rate. Steam rate. Steam rate, symbol is SR, and this is equal to 3600 divided by WS. 3600 divided by WS, that is the shaft work. Okay. And what is the definition? It is defined as the amount of steam required to develop 1 kilowatt hour of work. Okay, so that's why we have taken here the value 3600, that how much steam is necessary or how much steam is required for 1 kilowatt hour of the work. अगर 1 kilowatt hour का work produce करना है तो उसके लिए what is the steam consumption? So that is the given by steam rate, that is 3600 divided by WS. Okay, and its units are kg per kilowatt hour. Units are kg per kilowatt hour. So next one is the work ratio. The work ratio we have already defined during the process also. Work ratio, that is WR. So it is the ratio of shaft work to the turbine work. That is WS divided by WT, and both these are the works, so it has no units. Okay, the ratio of shaft work to the turbine work. Okay, so these are the some of the formulas, and shaft work we have already know ki how to calculate the shaft work. So WS is equals to WT minus WP. Okay, shaft work, it is the turbine work minus the work done by the pump. It is WT minus WP. Okay, so these are some of the formulas related with this topic. Okay, so these are the formulas, and one thing more to discuss here, that ki Rankine efficiency. Okay, the Rankine cycle efficiency, that is the, we say that ki Rankine efficiency is lower than Carnot efficiency. It is not only the thermal efficiency, so it is the complete cycle efficiency. Okay, the thermal efficiency, no doubt the Rankine cycle has better thermal efficiency than the Carnot cycle, but if you have considered the overall efficiency for the cycle, so then the Rankine efficiency is lower than the Carnot efficiency. So what is the main reason behind that? That in case of the Rankine cycle, the mean temperature of heat addition process is less than the mean temperature of the heat addition process of Carnot cycle. So what is the main reason? That the mean process of heat addition is less in case of Rankine cycle. Okay, so what is this mean process of heat addition? One thing, heat addition take place in the case of boiler, that is across the stage 2 and 3. And if you observe here in this graph, and in this graph especially, that the stage 2, 3, there is the variation of temperature take place. Okay, at the first stage, the temperature increases just for this, if some wet steam quality is taken here, and but if other, the temperature increases to this stage, then okay, so there is the variation in the increase of temperature in the case of heat addition process, whereas in case of the Carnot cycle, so this heat addition process take place at the constant level. So that's why in case of the Rankine cycle, the mean process of heat addition is less than the in case of uh, Carnot cycle. ठीक है, Rankine cycle में heat addition process का रेट कम है as compared to that of the Carnot cycle, but the heat rejection process that take place across this condensation stage, compression stage, so the heat rejection process is same in both the cycles, in case of Carnot cycle and also in case of the Rankine cycle. But the heat addition process is less in case of the Rankine cycle. So this is the main reason why the Rankine efficiency is lower than the Carnot efficiency. Okay, so you have seen here that the stage 4.1 where the heat rejection process take place. Okay, where the heat rejection process take place, it take place at a constant temperature. Okay, but the heat addition process take place between 2 and 3, and here there is the variation in the temperature. So this is the main reason. Whereas in case of Carnot cycle, both these processes 2, 3 and 4, 1 take place at the constant temperature. Okay, so that's why the overall efficiency is lower. I'm again repeating the reason. Because the mean temperature of the heat addition process in Rankine cycle is lower than the mean temperature of heat addition process in Carnot cycle. Whereas the mean temperature of heat rejection process in both the cycles remain same. Okay, so this is the main reason behind the low efficiency of Rankine cycle. And so this is all about the complete explanation of the Rankine cycle and Carnot cycle for this lecture. Thank you.